Well, you might get things started. Hello and welcome to our second Nature Stewards webinar. It's lovely to have you with us here today. It's my great honour to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands upon which we call from today. For me, that's the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I recognise their continued connection to land and sea country, community and culture, and tremendous care of country over many, many thousands of years. I pay respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that to any First Nations people with us here online today. G'day, my name is Maddie and I run the Nature Stewards program at the Victorian National Parks Association. Online today, you're very lucky to be hearing from our marvellous Andrew Keast, who's our Program Development Officer. We'll be giving you a rundown of the program, general overview, the many benefits of the program, as well as pricing, etc. And then you're going to get to hear from Dr. Nicole Mertens, our Community Learning and Engagement Manager and the Chief Developer of our amazing new marine and coastal content. If you've got any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section, or you can also put them in the chat and we'll get to them as we go through and particularly focus at the end with the Q&A. Please note this is recorded and the webinar will go online a bit later on with some of the chief questions potentially too if we want to continue that on. Righto, Andrew, I'll pass to you to take it away.
Wonderful. Thanks, Maddie. I'll share my screen. Hopefully everyone can see my screen there. So just as a way of introduction, the Nature Stewards program more broadly. Nature Stewards program is a multi-week course that connects curious people with their local and wider habitats. Our mission is to promote environmental literacy and stewardship of nature through discovery, action, and ongoing learning. History and vision of the program, it was seeded by Outdoors Victoria 4 or 5 years ago with funding from Radika. It's really based on the Master Naturalist program out of the US, which has been running for over 50 years now. And now the Nature Stewards program forms part of a suite of experiences and education programs offered by VNPA more broadly that includes Next Gen for youth engagement, bushwalking, Nature Watch, Reef Watch and Wild Families programs. The curriculum and content of Nature Stewards program was developed by leading scientists, conservation experts, traditional owners and environmental educators. And it's really for adults who are curious about their local ecology and the environment, who may not have formal qualifications, but are really wishing to learn and connect and participate in their local environment and community. The program structure, it's hosted and funded typically by local councils or local organisations and partners. The program runs from 6 to 10 weeks in terms of class sessions, with 4 to 6 field sessions that are scheduled in as part of the 10-week program. So providing over 34 hours of training. Class sessions have an expert facilitator, and then we bring in specialist guest presenters and also feature local volunteering groups. There are 10 modules across the 10 weeks that cover everything from First Nations culture and place through to ecosystems, geology, plant life, animal life, seasons, climate change, fire ecology, and then program reflections and next steps. And we really encourage participants to present projects at the end of the 10 weeks as inspiration for what they may have learned throughout the program. And as you see there, and is launched today, the marine and coastal content that was funded through Port Phillip Bay Fund is additional modules that we can switch in and out from these modules. The program is really there to foster curiosity, confidence, contribution, community and connection. Our program partners include Victorian Landcare, Victorian Environmental Friends Network and all the other organisations featured on this slide. And we've also worked with over 20 odd councils across regional and metropolitan Victoria, as you can see there by the logos. And we've now run over 45 programs across the state and have over 800 alumni that have been through the program. The key course benefits from the program include 80% increase in understanding of Victorian and local ecology, 45% positive shift in pro-environmental behaviours, a 45% increase in local community connection, and a 35% increase in wellbeing. For us, a really big key part of this is life after Nature Stewards. So providing a pathway for people to participate in their local community beyond the program includes involvement in local volunteering opportunities, further study and training, voluntary and paid employment, um, private property works, creative pursuits. We've even had people who have run for local council have been inspired by the program. New friends networks, either joining existing programs or starting their own programs, and generally sharing knowledge. The pricing for the program, we really run the program as effectively as a social enterprise. So VNPA is a charity organisation. So we run the program as a cost neutral program. Councils hosts typically fund the delivery costs, which are around 17,000 there. This includes all the facilitator and presenter costs, and expecting 20 participants over that 10 weeks. Participants pay Nature Stewards a small fee for going through the program. Typically, that's $350 as a full rate and $90 as a concessional rate. In some instances, we have had councils actually further subsidise that full rate to lower the barrier for entry for people to participate. VNPA funds the curriculum development, our monitoring and evaluation program, facilitator engagement, and overall program marketing and development. And then we bring in third-party program partners, and grants can subsidise participant placements and program delivery costs. So we've had land care and catchment management authorities that have sponsored participants through the program in various regions across Victoria. What do? We do all the heavy lifting of the program. So Maddie and Nicole really taking care of facilitators, presenters, the curriculum, taking applicants, or applications rather, and participant onboarding, and then the ongoing check-ins and the graduation and the monitoring and evaluation program. What we ask of hosts is that the booking of a venue, a suitable venue, hopefully close to nature, and then to promote the course across their regions. We welcome host suggestions for expert presenters, community groups and volunteering organisations and opportunities so that they can be incorporated in the curriculum. And if you wish to provide members of their teams, so local council representatives or local not-for-profit environmental organisations, providing experts in the field locally that may be able to facilitate field sessions, but it's not an expectation or a requirement. Our monitoring and evaluation program is really core to what we do, and ensuring that continual feedback and review to maintain the quality of the program. We've benchmarked our program against local, national, and international indicators, such as those listed there. So value nature advocacy behaviours, the biodiversity behaviour change targets, and so on and so forth. So, and that includes comprehensive surveys that happen at both prior to the program beginning and also after the program completed, and then annual impact survey that we conduct with our entire alumni group. Program policy alignment. So it is very much aligned to key policies and acts, both locally, nationally, and internationally, as you can see there. So local council biodiversity and sustainability policies are reflected through the program, Victoria's Biodiversity 2037, and Australia's sort of strategy for nature more broadly, and the global biodiversity framework. So very much reflecting the direction that we're heading in from that perspective. We've had some amazing feedback from the program, and I won't read out all these quotes, but perhaps leave it here just for a minute or so for you to read through a couple of those quotes, and obviously happy to provide more detail around the sort of feedback that we've got from the program, from participants and from hosts themselves. So, but suffice to say, I think there's a lot of people that are deeply inspired through the program. Thank you very much. I'll hand over to Nicole to launch our very, very exciting launch of our marine and coastal content.
Thanks, Andrew. Just bear with me while I pull up my screen. All right. Thanks for the introduction, Andrew and Maddie. As Maddie mentioned, My name is Nicole. I'm currently the manager of our experiences team, which includes Nature Stewards program. And I also had the privilege of coordinating the program while Maddie was on leave, getting real hands-on experience in everything that Andrew was talking about just before. So I'll just launch in, see if that works. Here we go. So as Andrew touched on, the Nature Stewards program curriculum was designed around these 5 Cs. And it's really with the aim to encourage our participants to find and explore new connections with nature at home or elsewhere. Be curious and observe and learn more about such areas, their cultural significance, and the ecological communities that they support. To explore culture through both local First Nations and non-Indigenous community connections, and how people can be involved, in positive local actions for their community and environment. And also to have the confidence, which is something we really think is key there, and the knowledge and connections to strengthen people's identity with like the stewardship of nature and contribute to local volunteering and citizen science where they can. So again, as was sort of touched on earlier, a typical Nature Stewards course runs over 10 sessions. There's 3 to 4 hours of class time per week, and then an additional 4 to 6 field trips in the afternoon of selected sessions, depending on the location, availability of guest presenters, and weather conditions on the day. And we really do want to work with hosts when we're sort of plotting out the course to identify some really nice activities that we can take people on in field sessions. So to date, the course outline has looked like this. It's designed really to be an introduction to environmental studies and the communities that are caring for nature in your local environment. So it covers topics like First Nations cultures in place, ecosystems, geology and soils, plants and fungi, waterways and water life. As you can see, there's already 2 topics that can be delivered in session 3. So that's looking after nature, which is kind of an introduction to land management and vegetation classification, or environmental interpretation, which is, as it sounds, a bit more of an introduction to creating and giving engaging interpretive programs. So the course structure is designed to be flexible in that way and focus on the needs of the host and audience. And while the content has a bit more of an emphasis on place-based learning and local connections with nature and community. So what we provide to our participants is a really big course book based on the Nature Stewards curriculum and sort of addressing the learning outcomes for each session. And it's really designed to help support our facilitators in terms of the content that they're covering in class, but also as a guide for participants who might miss a session, and also as a jumping off point for further learning. So there are case studies involved that kind of highlight key ideas. There's activities that they might be able to do in class or as part of their self-guided learning at home. And there's also these local focus sections that highlight where participants can look for policies, resources, and adventures really relating to nature in their local patch. One thing we have to note, though, is that around 90% of Australians live within 50 kilometres of the coast, and many live much closer than that. The coastal environment obviously has its own processes, ecosystems, wildlife, and unique challenges for managing and caring for nature. And while the Nature Stewards curriculum already covers some of those topics, we really wanted to build on these and tailor courses for hosts that might be partly or wholly located within Victoria's coastal zone, which does cover over 1 million Victorians and counting. So here are where our new marine and coastal alternatives fit in. So we've actually we're quite lucky to be recipients of the Victorian Government's Port Phillip Bay Fund for 2024 to help develop these. And it really gave us the ability to bring in some expert subject matter experts across these topics. So we're able to deliver these 6 sessions here. Note that the sessions have been designed basically to still complement the overall structure of the Nature Stewards course and provide a solid introduction to coastal environmental topics, but they're also fully interchangeable with all of our base sessions. So that means that if you want to offer a course to your residents or other audience that is primarily marine and coastal focused, you can, But if you oversee a mix of coastal and inland ecosystems, you've got the option to run a few coastal sessions along with terrestrially focused ones. So it's a bit like a pick and mix. As you can see here, you could run all 6 sessions, and it's actually something that our upcoming Geelong course with City of Greater Geelong is doing. So they've run the course every year since 2020, and they're seeing this kind of coastal alternative as a bit of a novel thing to offer their residents. So yeah, we're really excited to wheel that one out in full with Geelong in spring this year. But if your local patch is a bit of a mix of coastal and land-based ecosystems, you have got the option to run a few coastal sessions along with some of our more typically land-focused ones. So in this hypothetical course, they were running in autumn, and there's a great reserve near you that's got a fun like fungi trip that you can kind of work in, and you really want to showcase some of those really interesting mushrooms and other fungi. You'd want to include the plants and fungi session rather than plants and algae. But next week, you might want to go down to a local rock pool and do a bit of a ramble and discover some of the marine life on the rocky shores. So you could do the marine and coastal animals session in there to give the participants kind of the best background information for that session. And we really want to work with you during the planning phase of the course delivery to design the best course for you and your participants. It's also worth remembering again that the participants will receive a copy of the handbook. So if there is an alternative session topic to what they've covered in class, they do have the option to obviously go through that at home. Earlier this year, we did actually pilot some marine and coastal content and field sessions as part of the Mornington Peninsula Shire's autumn course. So the participants took part in 2 field sessions specifically tailored to the new coastal content. There was a rock pool ramble at Mushroom Reef, which you can see here, and a waterways walk and talk and water sampling along the estuary at Point Leo. They also had special in-class guest presenters covering marine and coastal animals, seaweeds, and coastal waterways. And those little insert circles are just some of the critters that everyone found while they were out on the rocky intertidal there at Mushroom Reef. And what we've got so far in terms of feedback from that course is that it seems to have hit the mark. So again, I'll leave some of these quotes up from our very recent graduates of the Mornington Peninsula course. And basically what we've found is that, yeah, they having that extra option, getting to see a little bit more of their local patch, both coastal and inland, really seemed to resonate with people, and obviously like who doesn't love a day at the beach. So yeah, we just think it's a really good way to just broaden what we offer to our hosts and also to our participants in the program, and are really excited to get it out there to any hosts that are interested. That's basically the end of my spiel. I'll again thank Victorian Government and the Port Phillip Bay Fund for supporting us in bringing this new content to our participants. Thank you.
Wonderful. Cheers, Nicole and Andrew, for those presentations. It's very exciting to have this new content to offer, as you say, in any mix and match style that hosts might be up for. So I guess now we'd love to open the floor to the Q&A. If anyone has any questions regarding the new content or generally running courses, etc., we're ready now, can answer those. While we wait to see if anyone's got any key questions, just would also like to say, obviously, anything that crops up after this webinar, do feel free to email us, naturestewards@vnpa.org.au, or Andrew Keast or Nicole at vnpa.org.au, and we'll get back to you. All right, we have one coming from Rosemary. Excuse me, I do have a cold today. The joys. Just inquiring as to where the locations are. So, for instance, in our upcoming spring delivery, we have a Geelong and Ballarat course. For our upcoming autumn 26 courses, we have a wider range of locations, also including Geelong and Ballarat, but councils such as Moonee Valley, Marybeck, potentially Hume, Knox and Mornington Peninsula, etc. So we varies a little bit depending on the seasons as to where we offer programs, but we are usually adding a couple of new programs every season or so as well in terms of locations, out to places such as Bendigo, things like that. So yeah, do get in touch if you're keen to take part or to host, because we're very keen to keep heading out across Victoria to run programs. Wonderful. Alrighty, so again, just coming in from Rosemary, the duration of the course. Generally, we run 10-week courses. We have run some pilots at 6 weeks, and we can, thanks to the nature of how the sessions have been written and the program has been developed, we can look at other timeframes as well, depending on the need of the host or hosts. But yeah, generally at the moment, it's a 10-week course with, as Andrew mentioned, the 4 to 6 field trips. But that is something that we can definitely negotiate depending on the needs of our host or host partners. Thanks, Jess, for that comment too.
And perhaps just to add to that, so each session's around 3 hours in terms of the classroom time, and then the sessions in the field probably similar sort of time, obviously depending on the location and the nature of the field trip itself. But yeah, so it's about 3 hours per week for the 10 weeks plus the field.
I suppose adding to that, Andrew, Maddie, and it's probably more of a question for your participants, I suppose, but yeah, we don't have, there's no homework. It really is just the commitment for the 3 hours plus maybe another 3 hours in the afternoon, depending on the week. So there's no assessments, no pressure. People can work through the curriculum and do further learning at home, but if all they can spare is the 3 hours to do the classroom on the Saturday, then yeah, that's completely fine. That's how it's designed.
Any other questions and bits and pieces? To also like to say again, thanks very much for coming on. Hope you're all warm and well, and yeah, hopefully we can chat in due course.
Perhaps just responding to Rosemary's comment there about assisting TAFE students. So the program is intentionally not accredited course, but wanting to remain as open as possible to encourage people who may not have formal qualifications that have a starting point and interest to then progress on to further studies, whether it be at TAFE level or some more broader tertiary level. So certainly see it as being an introductory pathway for those that may have not had any formal education in environmental studies prior to registering.
Yeah, and additional to that, Rosemary, we have had quite a few students who are currently taking part in various TAFE and higher education studies, who find, obviously to some degree, they're going to be going into far more detail in their other studies, but we find they value the Nature Stewards program for the local focus, but also the capacity to really build their networks with local industry and volunteering partners. So if you've got students who are keen, I definitely, put it as an option for them, because it does add, would hopefully complement whether they've started or looking to start TAFE training.
Yeah, and I guess to jump in there too, Maddie, it's something where we have people that do the course that might have a little bit of prior knowledge, but maybe not the local knowledge, down to the level of the kind of local ecosystems that they're encountering and the species they find there. So part of it is, I guess, introducing people or reintroducing people to a patch and connecting them with the people that they can get involved with in terms of like volunteering, citizen science. Because what we find is even people who have qualifications and done prior study, they're worried that they don't know enough about that local space. And they're worried about coming in and not feeling like they're equipped to do species monitoring or to be removing weeds and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, even if you do already have, say, like a TAFE qualification in a relevant area, we still find that people do get a fair bit out of the course as well.
I think perhaps also just to add to that from a health and wellbeing perspective. So as much as it's been, the program's obviously focused on the environmental side of things, we have found, significant contribution that we're making towards community health and well-being. In fact, we've just been a part of a social prescribing trial down in Geelong with Barwon Health. So really, obviously recognise the benefits of people immersing themselves in nature with others, and the sort of strong connections that can be made between participants is a big part of the program. And we keep the program intentionally to a relatively small number of 20 to 25 participants for that very reason. And we also find that there's a really, significant contribution towards arts and creativity through the program. We have a number of artists and also aspiring artists, I suppose, that have been through the program and created some remarkable works through inspiration in nature. So we see that being a key part of the program as well.
Thanks. So Rosemary is saying that she knows a few people in Mornington area would benefit. So yes, that Mornington is one of our one of our current hosts. They've hosted 3 times now, I think. And do we have them booked in for autumn, Maddie?
Yep, we do.
All right, so yeah, TBD on the dates and details for that one, but yeah, we will be coming back to Mornington.
Wonderful. Well, I think if there aren't any other questions, we might wrap it up there. But yeah, thank you all very much again for coming online today, and we hope to maybe have some chats in due course.
Perhaps just as a final comment, this recording will be available online, and we will circulate the link. Would love it if you're able to share it with others that may be interested in the program, if you do know people in your region or more broadly. And as Maddie mentioned, we'd love to hear from you directly if you'd like to talk in more detail about how we might be able to run the program in your area.